watching Gearz.
Hey, welcome to Gearz. You know, a few weeks ago, we jumped into a project that kind of caught everybody by surprise when we rolled in this mild-mannered robin egg blue 67 Mercury Cougar and immediately began to rip it all apart. This is where all the good stuff is. Under the back seat. There we go. Oh yeah. You got a comb and you got a coupon for a trial size bag of colossal nuts. There you go. From there, the car went seriously under the knife as we began to transform it into a monster called the V8 Interceptor. We completely cut out the original front suspension and the shock towers. And installed a state-of-the-art front suspension from TCI and massive Willwood brakes. The rear suspension was next, and like the front, all the old junk was completely stripped out, and then a complete subframe and subframe connectors were installed to tie the front and the rear of the car together for super strength and rigidity. A massive Curry 9-inch rear end went in next, and a custom torque arm suspension holds it all in place. The new stance for the old cat was finished off with a custom set of shot wheels and Goodyear tires. Of course, the reason that we had to do all that work was to make room for this. A massive 520 cubic inch John Kaase Boss 9 engine that's kicking out almost 800 horsepower and over 700 foot-pounds on pump gas. Of course, to back that engine up, we have a Tremec Magnum 6-speed transmission from American Powertrain.
How you on the motor mount? I'm right on mine.
The best part is, now there's a whole bunch of people across the nation that are wanting to do a similar project on a Cougar or a Mustang or even a Fairlane. However, there's more to doing a swap like this than just getting the engine to fit within the fender wells. You kind of need to design everything around it because it's so big. And we've been getting a lot of questions, a lot of emails from people wondering what we did with things like headers and oil pan and that kind of stuff. So, we're going to walk you through some of the challenges that you might be facing on a project like this, and some of the ways to solve them. Now, with all those accessories hanging off the front of the engine, fitting a radiator that's big enough to cool that engine could be an issue. We took care of that problem with this big aluminum radiator and dual electric fan system from Mustangs Unlimited. Now notice, it's going to slide right in place of the original radiator and fan and leave us plenty of room to service those accessories. However, we will need to come in here and cut these edges and make our own mounting brackets. Next up is the master cylinder. Now remember, we were going to use this Willwood dual master cylinder, but with a mock-up engine in place, you can see we've got some issues here. With the master in the stock location, you can see we're right up against the valve cover. But a simple way to solve this is just remount the master cylinder about an inch to the driver's side, and that'll give us just enough room to get the valve cover off and still get to the clutch master cylinder. Now, if you don't want to do it this way, don't want the master coming this far into the engine bay, Willwood also makes a whole bunch of smaller master cylinders and pedals to go with them, so you can mount something in the stock location and still have plenty of room. But if you do it this way, remember, these are single master cylinders, so you got to mount two of them, one for the front brakes, one for the rear brakes. And to do that, you're going to have to modify the firewall in this area so you can mount two side by side. Now, speaking of the firewall, as you can see, we've got plenty of room here for the block and for the bell housing. Not so right here. There is not enough room to service that bell housing. So this part of the firewall is going to have to be recessed at least as far back as this is. With the engine out, you can see that fortunately there is a simple solution here. All you have to do is cut around this stamped area, get rid of it, build yourself a flat panel and weld it in. This will recess this area by 2 inches, giving you plenty of room to service that engine. But remember, if you do this, you're probably not going to be able to reuse your stock air conditioning and heater. You're going to have to get a smaller aftermarket unit because now you have less room under the dash. The steering rack needed only slight modification for oil pan clearance. This tab here needed to be ground down a bit. The oil pan you need to use is from Moroso, and it's designed to fit a Ford 460 engine into a Fox-bodied Mustang. Due to its unique sump design, it fits right around the steering rack and crossmember with just a few inches to spare. Okay, with so much going on at the front of the car, there is one thing that we have to deal with back here, the gas tank. Now, you can reuse the original gas tank for a restoration if it's not rusty and there's not a bunch of junk in it. But if you're going to use a modern engine with modern fuel injection, electric fuel pump, you're going to end up modifying a tank like this so much it's not worth it. So we made a call to Rick's Hot Rod Shop and we had him make us a custom tank. Now, Rick specializes in direct replacement tanks and custom tanks. So here's what we had him do for the V8 Interceptor. All 304 stainless steel, sending unit, hookups for the electric fuel pump. And then inside, you got that big old Aeromotive fuel pump that'll support up to 2,000 horsepower. And then of course it's got all the baffling that you're gonna need to run a road course, a drag strip, or just down the street. The best part is, this will drop right in place of the stock Cougar tank or a Mustang tank. Hey, welcome back to Gearz and more of the V8 Interceptor project. Now, like we said before, anytime you stuff that much engine into a small engine compartment, you're going to have some clearance issues. And we've been able to address most of those on the show. But one thing we haven't talked about is hood clearance. Now, as you can see, even with just a carburetor on it, we're already above the hood line. So you're going to have to cut a hole in the hood and at least put a scoop on there. But we're not going to run a carburetor, and we're not going to put on a scoop. Not on something this wild. Check it out. Now everybody knows that one of the coolest things to have sticking up out of your hood is a blower.
When do we go for a ride?
But even that would pale in comparison to the visual punch of an 8-stack injection sticking up through the hood. But that'd be impossible, right? I mean, for that engine, that kind of intake system doesn't exist. But man, what if it did? This is the incredible 8-stack electronic fuel injection that John Kaase has developed for the Boss 9 engine. And one thing is for sure, you better be ready for some attention if you're going to put one of these on your engine.
There was nothing to fit this engine, so we had to get a hold of some people and have us make a pattern. And you know, we did a prototype manifold, and then we had the pattern built for this manifold, and then we had the manifolds cast, and then we had to figure out how to machine them and stuff.
Of course, the system is based off of a vintage-style Hillborn 8-stack fuel injection to give it a nostalgic visual punch. But if you look a little deeper, you're going to find this is a state-of-the-art electronic fuel injection. The fuel rails, the injectors, and the wiring harness are all tucked up nice and neat into the middle of the unit to keep a super clean appearance. The whole bottom, however, is a plenum that connects all the ports to give you a common, reliable vacuum so you can run power brakes and sensors and all the other stuff necessary on a modern street car.
You know, with the electronics, you get all the idle perfect. Your fuel is perfect everywhere. Mm-hmm. You know, if you got some cylinders, even though they're all individual, you know, some cylinders run a little leaner than others or something, you can tailor all that.
Yeah. Of course, everything is controlled by a computer by Fast Electronics to give you the looks of a race car and the reliability of a street machine. But what about power?
I was scared to death when we first ran it because you spend a lot of money getting to this point.
Yeah.
You know, and I said, well, what, you know, these engines normally make about 750 or 80 horse or whatever with a hydraulic cam. I think, well, what if we put the thing on there? It's 500 horse. You know, what then? You know, we've got a lot of money, and it could have done that, but it wasn't. It was almost exactly the same as a carburetor. Okay. High RPM, you know, like 760 or 80 horse. But you know, the cool thing is it's 20 or 30 foot-pounds more torque.
The best part is, this isn't just some one-off unit that we've got and you can't have. No, if you want one of these induction systems to top off your Boss 9, all you gotta do is give Kaase a call. And if you need something that's a little more understated, you can get stacks in different sizes all the way down to these little stubbies, so you can try to fit something like this under the hood. Obviously, we're not gonna try to do that. Now, another thing that an engine like this needs is headers. You gotta have them, but they've gotta fit the tight confines of that engine compartment. So where do you go? Over here. When you've got a Ford engine like this, you need somebody that specializes in Ford headers, and that place is Ford Powertrain Applications, or FPA for short. Now, when they heard that Kaase was coming out with the Boss 9 engine, they knew they had to make a special header for it. Check it out. They came out with this long tube, tri-Y style design to give the power and performance of a long tube header, but being a tri-Y, it's not going to take up quite as much room. Now, as you can see, they've got big, thick flanges, so they're not going to warp on you. And you've got the ball style collector, so you don't have to use a gasket, it's not going to leak on you. That cool gray color comes from Performance Coatings, and it's called Restoration Gray Ice, and not only does it look cool, but it's also an extreme high temperature coating, so that is not going to be burning off anytime soon. Now, I know some of you guys are looking at this going, there is no way that long tube header is going on that engine in that engine compartment around that big transmission. Want to bet? As you can see, they're designed to tuck nice and tight around the block and give you plenty of room for steering and everything else. If you're looking for some Ford headers that'll perform and fit, check them out at FordPowertrain.com.